The sun has left and forgotten me. It's dark, I cannot see.
Your stories don't define you, but how you tell them will. Hi, I'm Sarah Elkins, your host and chief storymaker at Elkins Consulting. I call myself a story maker because over the years, I've learned that when I am fully present in the moment, I make the stories I want to share later. I'm conscious of what I'm doing, how I'm contributing, how my words and behavior and actions influence my life and the environment and the people around me. And when I'm intentional about that, I build the stories that not only I want to share later, but that I want other people to share about me later.
I love that.
Today's guest is exactly the kind of person that you would expect from a conversation among storytellers. This woman, Diana Place, has third act quest, and throughout our conversation, you'll understand and you'll love what this means, this third act quest. When I started reading into her profile and reading the material she sent to me to prepare for this, I knew she was going to bring a great conversation of humor and insight to this podcast. So listeners, you're in for a treat. Diana, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, Sarah, thank you so much for having me. I think we all have embedded in us the knowing of the power of hearing and sharing our story. So I want to learn, hear about your experiences. So I'm very pleased to be here.
Thank you. I'm excited for this. So I always begin these conversations, or most of the time. I don't have any always because I don't have the word routine in my vocabulary. But most of the time, I begin this conversation by asking my guests to share something about themselves that most people might not know about them. And I do this because more and more we tend to label people and anchor them in a label based in one interaction, one thing that they read or say, and then they're stuck. And we miss out on the incredible beauty of the complexity of who we are as human beings. So by sharing something that most people might not know about you, it's not in your bio, it's not in your profile, we give our audience an opportunity to see you as a multidimensional person. So what do you think?
I love that. I love that. I think that one of the things that I'm spending time, in, this time of my life, this phase of my life, I call it third act. I'm hearing that term more and more, thank goodness, as we recognize that it isn't, I'm 66, not time to retire. I never will retire. I have finally pulled all the parts of me together. But one of the things I would think most of the people that may have known me through different sections of my life may not know, not a really specific thing or attribute, but moreover, from the outside. So if you go to my LinkedIn, you might get a sense of me from some of the things I post. But if you look at my resume, I'm like, yeah, whatever. What I've done in my life has been a journey. It's been a roller coaster. If you were a career planning person from my college, you would say I was all over the place, but I have followed my heart. And I think that's the thing that you might be able to discern or people might know about me. But I have received, I call them aha moments. I've had aha moments in my life that have led me to make crazy decisions. Some of them didn't go so well. Most of them did, because I trust my heart. I have this way of knowing when something's right. And I think we all do, but sometimes we say, no, I'm afraid, right? I have to stay here. So I trust my heart. I take leaps of faith to follow it and do what I feel I'm meant to do in this life.
Isn't that funny that when people look at our bio or our LinkedIn profile or whatever, they may get an idea of our career path.
Yes.
but they can't tell that every shift was a following of a signal. Carol Campos talks about it as divine breadcrumbs.
Yes.
And I interviewed her many years ago on this podcast, and that has been so sticky for me. And I think many people don't realize that being a career generalist is not as uncommon as people may think. And we get into this I should have this
Right.
linear career. I should have everything listed on my bio so it shows all of the transitions. But I love that you are acknowledging that probably less than obvious path on that profile and on your resume. So thank you for that.
Well, sure. I think if I call it a thread, I call it breadcrumbs, I call it a thread, whatever it is that I didn't see ahead of time, but I felt ahead of time. But to me, it's a fascination with human connection. And right now, I think that's what we need more than anything. So for me, I feel like my life has been leading me to here. I'm not coming from something and reinventing. I'm coming home. I am like coming home to what I'm supposed to be doing, that I may have all the shoulds pushed it aside a little bit. But yeah, so I love the idea that we as humans, I mean, I said to somebody the other day, I was an English lit major. Wanted to study sociology. I wanted to study medicine. I wanted to study art. I wanted to study geology. I want them all. But at the heart of it is the fascination with humans and their stories and what drives us, what makes us tick, what makes us hopefully come back to a way of being and living that is true.
I love this idea of this part of your life as a coming home. I feel the same way. And I remember after my first big keynote, I was still working full time for a government agency. And one of my friends who was in her 60s came into my office and she said, "Tell me about it. Tell me about the keynote." Because she knew she was part of the Women's Leadership Network that I was on the board of. And she said, "I knew you were gone for that. What happened?" And I told her all about it. And I was raving. I said, "I just wish I'd found this earlier." And she looked at me and she laughed. She said, "Sarah, you're exactly where you were supposed to be at the time you were supposed to be there." She said, "You
Yes.
couldn't have done this 3 to 5 years ago because you didn't have the experiences that you had to have in order to make this work."
Yes.
So I love that. And we lost her too young. She was super active and super fit. And when we lost her in our community, it was devastating. And at the same time, I had this comfort knowing that she was comfortable in her skin, that she had lived the life that she allowed and encouraged and built, right? Like so many of us leave too soon and don't have that sense of satisfaction, but I knew she did. So,
Yes.
so let's back up to before I hit record for this episode. You were telling me about a session for a summit retreat conference that you did in Santa Fe recently. Well, you talked about a woman that facilitated a session on the bio that your soul would write for you.
Yes.
What is a moment? So I have very visual moments, and often I can guide my clients to find those visual moments, to relive them, and then to share them as a story. But some people don't have visual association with memory. I'm guessing you do, though. So what is a visual association you have with that event that you hosted in Santa Fe, and in particular, that session?
That session was a part of an arc of the 4 days we spent together. And it was all to set the stage for literal and metaphorically for the stage for women. We had 25, I call them aha moment storytellers. And we had 3 waves of it. And as I prepared the audience with this whole concept of coming home, part of the session that you alluded to was some writing prompts and conversation around if you were to write your bio without your resume, responsibilities, roles, achievements, how many times do you meet someone and they lead with that? I'm a mother of 4, I'm a TEDx speaker, 4-time author, whatever it is. So stripping that all back, it was just beautiful to see. We had a group of about 50 women. It was beautiful to see, but it set, as I said, set the stage for very heart-opened aha stories. They had been prepared, and as you mentioned, the way you work with people, I have created a process by which I call it mining your memory for meaning and sourcing the aha moments that you may want to share. As you well know from what you do, there are so many moments of clarity. They either come from a lightning strike disruption, I like to say, or a quiet whisper that becomes louder that you can't ignore, that's saying, stop, do this, change that, finally go for this. Those are the kinds of things that these women shared. My belief is, and it came true, is that they were electrifying. It didn't matter that you couldn't relate to a woman who had been the head of communications at Harvard Medical School and maybe you're a yoga teacher. Didn't matter. Every woman's heart came out in these stories. And I just saw the visual effect of that, and the electricity was in the air, let's say. So I think what it comes down to is we all need to find connection among differences and to find connection with who we are, not just what we've done.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's my thought around that.
Well, it sounds like that was part of your aha moment. Do you remember a moment for yourself during that session where you felt electrified by what was happening in the room? And like what did that look like visually for you?
I've seen this event in my mind's eye since I started Third Act Quest. I remember the precise moment I had come through a crazy medical challenge, let's say it, that disrupted, I called it my lightning strikes, concurrent lightning strikes around a diagnosis that required that I shut down a business as I was empty nesting and turning 60. So it's like, hello, it cleaned the slate for me. And coming out of that time, I sat in my chair and I knew what I was supposed to do in this life. And I had, as I mentioned before, been dancing on the edges of my passions most of my career. I loved everything I did. It all added up, that followed that thread. But I knew in a flash, I said, I want to share the stories of the extraordinary, ordinary women who are in their third act. I was seeing in the world, not only the population was noticeably aging, everybody's talking about it, and the media started to cover stories on women that were older. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Jane Fonda, Jane Goodall, the usual suspects, I began to call them because they were all the celebrity figures. And I said, how about the woman down the street from me who runs a food pantry? How about a woman who quit her job and became a filmmaker at 65? How about, so I said, those are the stories I want to tell. So I sat in the chair and I said, but I'm in the beginning of that. And so everything in since 2019 has led me to what happened last week on stage with 25 storytellers. Not to go too much into the weeds, but I I had a wonderful experience out of COVID, which was to host a Zoom storytelling event. But this was about, connecting in person, gathering at a time in the world we all need each other in that way. So I'm not sure that I've done a circuitous route around
No,
question.
I love that you talked about the vision that you had and how that came to you in 2019 and what you imagined physically what it would look like gathering these women together. When was a moment during the event that you looked around? Now you can look back and say, oh, this is a vision from that example. So I'll give you a quick example. When I was hosting my No Longer Virtual Summit, which I did for 8 years with anywhere from 23 to 40 people from all over the world came together that had only met on LinkedIn. And
Yes,
when
yes.
I look back at the last one we did, which was in Austin, Texas, in 2025, I skipped it this year. I have this vision because we did it in it's called the Cathedral, but it's a meeting space that is also a gallery and focused on women artists in the Austin area. And the light coming in from these giant windows of what used to be an old church. And I remember seeing one particular woman sitting next to another woman. I didn't know her very well, but I knew the woman next to her really well. And I have this vision of the two of them having this deep conversation during one of the sessions and pulling an important thread for this new guest. And I could see their expressions. I couldn't hear what they were talking about, but I could see their expressions. And because I knew the other woman well, I could feel the connection that they were creating in that moment. And that's why I started doing No Longer Virtual, was exactly for what you described, to gather people in person, to learn from each other, to value each other's experiences, to remember how to talk to each other with respect and dignity. So that vision stays with me, and it inspires me to start it again in 27. 26 is just a year that it wasn't going to happen. But so what's your vision? What was it a
will have to
time?
see. So one of the things that I didn't share is that after my virtual storytelling, thank you, COVID, thank you, Zoom, was magical. The women that I pulled together to share their stories, and there's some extraordinary women that they all said yes, and they all came, and they all wanted to stay connected. So I actually created a community for us to be able to do that. So flash forward to Santa Fe, and then my first Quest gathering in Rhode Island. What struck me the most similarly was this perfect combination of, I've only seen you on this flat screen on Zoom, but I know you so well and I love you in those ways. So the hugging, it was as though they had been lifelong friends
Right.
because of the common like-mindedness. I like to say, if I were to define these women, I don't define them by their industries, their backgrounds, their age, maybe over 50, but maybe 90. I mean, they're all over the map age-wise, but what defines them is curiosity. I call it fierce curiosity, generosity of energy to share with each other. And, they're like they're each other's cheerleaders. So back to your idea of the vision, what I saw so many times was the knowing of each other and electric connection, not just for the women that were, let's see if I can come back on. I love to be able to see you. Not only for the women that knew each other already, but the ones that had never walked in a room together, or even a Zoom together. It was contagious. I invited an indigenous oracle healer to talk to us about the power of story. Grandmother Lani-san, Moonwalker. So probably the first moment for me that was magical that I will never forget was the moment when she affirmed all that I knew about the power of story. We created a circle. She went to each of us and blessed us and welcomed us. And she came to me and she told me the reason why she said yes to my invitation. And the look in her eyes and the story of that affirmation that included, after we spoke, a red-tailed hawk drove across her window and flashed. So to me, there was, I just got goosebumps again. But to me, it's the other moments that I remember, like you, our second night of storytelling was in a room called the Santa Fe Room at La Fonda on the Plaza, which is a very important historical hotel. But it was originally a chapel, and it was like 30-foot tall ceilings with beams and these gorgeous chandeliers. And the room was filled. 40 some people, addition to the 50 we already have, came from the town of Santa Fe, including several young girls who I'd invited from the group Girls Inc. because I wanted a little bit of intergenerational connection. So for the moments with them was to watch them listen to the stories of 75-year-old women with their mouths wide open, like. So it's like, I know from my own youth, and you probably too, the impact of having someone really connect with you and share something like this. So I know it has sparked something in each and every person in that room. So
I love that. Yes. What I'm imagining is the women coming into a room with beautiful natural light and seeing each other in person for the first time and immediately going to hug and feeling like it's more of a reunion of friends than a conference or an event that no one knows each other. I mean, I can feel those hugs just in the way that you described them. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad. I think that when you are a visual person like you are, you can identify with the importance of the scene. The room we had the event in was full of art like yours, and it was also just, oh my God, it was so gorgeous. But what else we did, and this is something I want to share because I believe it's very important for all of us as we sort of strip back the masks and strip back the identities that we put out and really understand who we are and how we want to express in the world. So the way I had them introduce each other at their tables, they all had round tables of 8 women. I had them send in a picture of themselves as their 5-year-old selves. And they each had their pictures in front of them. And I asked each of them to go around the room and show their picture and introduce themselves as that 5-year-old girl. I said, she's in you somewhere still. She's instrumental to who you truly are. You might have put her in a box sometime a while ago to succeed in the corporate world or to do for everyone else but yourself, but let her come alive in you again. So that was the coolest thing. I took a little video camera and I walked around capturing these very serious women at the beginning, showing their pictures, but saying, yeah, this is the day I climbed up a tree and I fell down. It was the coolest thing. I loved it. So.
Ah, that sounds wonderful. What a great experience for everyone involved. So now I know one aspect of the work you do, which is to create this environment and this space for women to come together and share their stories within their communities, bringing more people in. Tell me about what else you do with Third Act Quest, because I'm not as familiar with the rest of what you're doing.
Like many entrepreneurs, I have meandered and allowed myself to pivot and change and go backwards and forwards. So basically where I am is now centered around this community of these fiercely curious women. We meet online regularly. We do all sorts of things together. We connect. So aha gatherings will be blooming out of that. I have visions for bringing back the old-fashioned salon.
So when you, I know that now that you have done this incredible event in Santa Fe, you've done it in another place, you've done it on Zoom. What are the other opportunities that you're creating for women to learn how to share their stories and then share them and connect with other women?
Since Third Act Quest was born, I have tried a number of different ways. My overarching mission and the story sharing is integral to it. But my overarching mission is to reframe aging and reframe the way people perceive aging, either those that are over 50 or those that are younger. Mostly, I wanted to shift women, shift their perception that it's time to retire, step back, that it's too late, that they're done, they're too old for this, and to flip that on its head and really help people dwell in possibility. So I've done a number of things beyond the storytelling. But at the core right now, I've landed in the vision of keeping what will be a growing, not too fast, because I want to be careful, but a growing collective of women. I call it the 333 Collective. And using aha story gatherings, either in somebody's living room or in a local stage like we did in Santa Fe. But I see aha as a really interesting introspection to be able to mine your memory for meaningful moments that guided you, that precipitated change, that got you back on track or got you to the place you're meant to be. And a lot of us, I believe our third act can be the best chapter in our life story. And many, especially women, are so insecure, especially if they've been pushed out of jobs. And the number of women that I know that were in fabulous roles in their lives mysteriously were downsized or outplaced in their 50s. And confidence can dip. So what I'm at the heart of trying to do, and I think that's the cool thing about life, is we do what we personally need at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just believe that life is a miracle. I almost lost mine, so that was a gift to me to really affirm that every single moment is an opportunity for me. But I have to decide to keep it, to let it that way. So all that we do brings women together for connection with like-minded women, to propel each other, to amplify each other's work. Many of the women are very purpose-driven, have built initiatives to play a role in the larger world. They're, whether it be anti-ageism, whether it be angel investing, whether it be art to inspire, they have a purpose and a calling that they're answering. So it's just to recognize and to inspire And so that's I'm speaking around it, but to me, it is all about connection, human connection. And if story can help expand that, that's my belief.
Well, all of what you said resonates with me because I just turned 56 just very recently. And like you, I'm just finally finding my groove. Finally, after many different kinds of career moves, I'm finally finding what I'm really, really good at. And what I love about what you said was that it's not just your message isn't just for women over 50. The message is to much younger women, A, you're going to be here and it's going to happen much faster than you anticipate. And B, how can we support each other? It doesn't make any sense for there to be comparison and competition among younger women and older women. The fact is we are here for each other and we have to support each other. And I wish that somebody had told me that at 19 or 20 years old, that I would want to be a woman who supports other women.
Absolutely. I think,
So, yeah.
you're in the academic world. I was in the corporate world where women did regularly compete.
For sure.
And
I was in
in
corporate as well and public service. I mean, I was in a lot of different places in my career. But the other thing that resonated with me was I have two interactions that popped into my head. And one was when I worked for the city. I was the first public information officer for my city here in Montana. They had never had anyone in that role before, so I got to design it and create it. There was a county commissioner who was elected into her position, and at one point we were having this conversation, and she said that she was leaving space for her daughter's generation to do the things that she was in the process of stepping back because she's done, basically, is what she was saying. And I looked at her, I said, you were elected, you are still contributing, you still have a really, really important role here. So when you talk about stepping back, what you're talking about is not leaving space, you're leaving a gap for somebody to fall into and hurt themselves. So how about we remember that you have a role and a responsibility, especially as an elected official, but also that this isn't the end for you.
No.
This is a time where you get to influence, where you've had all these experiences. It was an intense interaction because I think she was very surprised that I got so upset about what she had said. I don't think she had really thought about it. And when she said it to me, this has to be, 10 years ago. And it still makes me upset to think about. The other interaction I had was more recently with my mother. And she made a self-deprecating remark. And I'll just do the specifics. She came to visit me and she got to sit in on a workshop that I was hosting on storytelling for professionals. Why sharing stories at work matters in terms of connecting, in terms of demonstrating what you're great at, all those great reasons to share stories at work. And afterwards, she took me out for brunch and I said, Mom, this was such a great visit. Do you realize that we hiked over 8 miles together in the last 2 days and you're almost 80? And I'm just so proud of that. And I just hope you're proud of that. And she said, well, I had to stop too often. And I just looked at her and I said, Mom, when you dismiss your accomplishments, you are you're sending a message to all the women around you to dismiss their accomplishments.
Yeah.
Is that really what you want your message to be to your daughter, your daughters, your granddaughters, your nieces? Do you want to send them the message that they should dismiss their accomplishments? Is that your intention?
I don't know if you heard this in your world. I'm like 10 years older than you, but the most prolific guidance when we were younger was don't toot your own
Oh
horn.
yeah, I got that for sure.
Like,
I
oh,
definitely
Diana,
got
don't
that.
toot your own horn. Oh, I'm 5 and I think I did a pretty painting. But you know this because the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we learn from those around us. I,
Mhm.
I have a grandmother story similar to yours where I basically sat in my chair that same day I decided to launch Third Act Quest and I said, why am I doing this? Well, number one, I've come out of a life-threatening time where I'm realizing that the horizon could be any day. It could be 30 years from now, but it's important to live the life I'm meant to do. Do what I'm meant to do. I said, but at the real heart of it, my mother was very depressed most of my life and very, well, with narcissistic tendencies. My grandmother was just amazing. She, when she's 80, she decided to go to Spain and learn Spanish. I mean, she just never said never,
Mhm.
never thought of herself as done. She milked every instant out of life. So I said, I want to play a hand in making any woman see and think of the possibilities for her life, like my grandmother.
Mhm.
And I want no one or less people to feel like my mother. I don't, that dimming of the light, the, oh, I could never do that. I'm too old. I'm 60. It does not compute with us now. It does not compute with me, but it is embedded. Internalized ageism is the most powerful of all. Yeah, outside of us, that's not so good, but internalized ageism
Agree. Totally
is
agree.
huge. You know, I had a daughter when I was 41. She's 24, I'm 66. And I will tell you one of the coolest moments of my life to realize that I'm glad I was the older mom when she said to me when she was 5, she goes, "Well, Mom, what are all those wrinkles around your eyes and your face?" I mean, I was fully 20 years older than most of her friends' moms,
Right,
right?
of course, yeah.
And I remember looking in, she was in her little seat in the back. And I said, "Oh, baby, this is like, look how much I've laughed. Look how much I've smiled. This is like a map of the moments of my life. And I'm proud of them. And I don't,
Mm.
I don't worry about that." And so I remember looking at her little face going, "Oh, okay." Now, just as easily, I could have said, "Oh, I need to get Botox, honey. We got to have smooth skin." And I could have ruined that
Right.
moment, right? So I don't know. I feel like, you know, we need to seek the new stories. If we have some of those old stories, we need to ditch them. We need to
Mhm.
erase them and reinvent them, I think. Remake them,
Absolutely. Or
rewrite
just decide that they no longer fit. I mean, some of those stories, maybe they fit at one point, and we can be okay with, sure, that was an era in my life where I wore all dark, bland colors because I didn't want to stand out, and that's where I was at that point in my life. But that doesn't fit me anymore. So I'm going to make sure that my closet is full of color now.
Yes.
Because me, I am
Yeah.
full of color. I want my closet to represent that. And I think it's so important to see that just because that fit before doesn't mean that it's going to continue to fit. And taking that inventory, does this fit?
Yeah.
So I think a lot about starting new things well into life. Obviously, I'm a big believer in that. As a matter of fact, I started singing with a rock band for the first time in my life at 40 years old.
Wow.
I had never performed in a rock band, and now here I am 16 years later and still loving it, still standing on stage in my go-go boots and my vintage mini dresses and rocking it. I don't care what anybody says. The last time we had a gig, I remember feeling fully in my skin on that stage, even though I had to put on a different dress than I intended because the first one didn't fit properly. And I thought, oh man, I am getting older. My body is changing, but I have this other dress I can wear. And so even though I had that self-consciousness leaving the green room and walking onto the stage, by the time I got on the stage, I fully embodied that aspect and embraced it because I knew what I was doing. So when you think about third act, you're obviously just in the very beginning of your third act. This is still new because your third act is the rest of your life and it'll be new every day.
Yes.
I'm thinking about my second book. That's part of my third act, is writing another book as a companion to my TED Talk that was released earlier this year. What's yours? What's the next thing?
Okay, baby, this is coming home, truly coming home. And Aha will be a film, not a documentary per se, talking head documentary, but I have the vision for it as a film. And it's not just because I say, oh, this should be a movie. No. When I was 7, I sat on my bed. I had one of those little desk lamps, so those gooseneck desk lamps with the, you can move
Adjustable.
around.
Mhm.
And I had on my little 45 record player, I played Blue is My World. I have to listen to that again. But I had tissue paper colors and I was just like, and I was always a photographer from 5 years old. I'm a visual person. And I believe, and catch this, 2 of the women that I've aligned with, now 4, are filmmakers or have been in the movie business at some point in time. And I'll mention this dream. And I started talking about it audibly, not just to me, about a
Right.
year ago. And one of the filmmakers said, I'm going to help you.
That's
I'm
a
like,
great project.
of course you are. So that's the vision where this is meant to be live. And,
Mhm.
I jokingly say, there's room for TED Talks, there's room for moth storytelling. There will be different size and versions, aha story stages. So that's another vision I have, is I want to see them popping up, not all run by me, but
Right. Like,
inspired by me, because I have a little kit that I'll give them. So, I'm just planting seeds in several different ways to achieve my mission, really.
that sounds great. I love the idea of a film. I immediately was thinking about the women who do things like start singing in a rock band at 40 or
Rock and
start
roll.
a business at 60, or the women who decide to run for office in
Yes.
their 60s or early
Yep.
70s or whatever. I would want to see that film and see them in action and see the pictures of them as younger girls and women, and then inspiring these young girls to say, my mom could do that. Or look at my grandmother. Look how amazing she is at 80 years old. Look at what she's doing. And changing that whole dynamic about age. I just saw something about how the Guardian had an op-ed about the festival musicians and how those festival musicians, the people over 50, should just give it up. And there was this huge outpouring of support for musicians over 50, saying, that's bullshit. We want to see these musicians continuing well into as far into their lives as they can. And I was so relieved to see that pushback. Madonna showed up, and I still follow Duke Robillard, who started Roomful of Blues in the DC area in the
Oh, I
70s.
love,
He's
yeah.
still playing in his 80s. I got to meet him. We conversed a few times. Like, this guy is still doing it, and I would never want to tell him or have the gall to say, "Oh, hang it up, buddy." Like, who says
No,
that?
yeah, well, that's fear. I mean, that's othering. I mean, that's why I'm saying all the isms are bad. All the racism, the
Yeah.
sexism, the ageism.
Generalizing. It's
But
the
if we can,
generalizing.
but Did you watch Riot Women by Amy?
I did. Oh my gosh, I love that show.
Hello.
I love that show.
So,
Diana, oh,
oh,
sorry, go ahead.
no, it's an exciting time to be alive because it's a challenging time to be alive, an exciting time to be alive because people are realizing the importance of what you and I are so passionate about, gathering together. Bruce Feiler's book, Stay Tuned. I don't know if you follow him, but oh my gosh, A Time to Gather is coming out shortly. It is, we need each other to heal, to grow, to inspire each other. And knowing that I watched 3 teenagers with their mouths dropping, looking at an older woman who they would be kind to, but had no idea what was under her skin and her experiences. I had a woman coming to me going, "Oh my God, I'm almost looking forward to getting old now when I hear you." I'm like, "You just
Yeah,
wait."
just take care of your body.
Yeah,
Take
exactly.
care of your body. Take care of your skin. Diana, that's a perfect place to wrap this up. I love what you're doing. I know that we are going to
too, you-
continue this conversation into the future because we have a lot in common. I want to make sure that I am hearing about it when you start the production and
Oh, thank you.
fundraising and planning for the film. And I know that you're right. This is an exciting time to be alive. Yes, it is incredibly challenging, but now is the time where more and more people are realizing that even as individuals, we have a role in community. We have a role in improving the lives of our neighbors and the people around us. And we have a role in our own happiness and satisfaction, no matter how old we are.
Absolutely. Amen.
So thank you for joining me on Your Stories Don't Define You,
Pleasure,
How You
Sarah.
Tell Them Well.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Listeners, now it's your turn. What part of this conversation made you realize something about your own aging and maybe your internal messages that are affecting who you are and that you're modeling and sharing with younger people? If you're one of the younger listeners under 50, what part of this conversation made you eager to maybe hear the stories of people around you that you've only ever known skin deep? I would love to hear what resonated with you in this conversation. Send me a message, visit my website, elkinsconsulting.com, and check out all the links for Diana Place. They will be at elkinsconsulting.com on the podcast page in the show notes associated with this episode. Thank you so much for listening.
You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile.